Hey, Misha, it's Ludwig. I need to ask you something. Is it possible to buy a used military submarine? A submarine? I need to make a few phone calls. I need some time. I'll get back to you. Ludwig, I checked. The answer is yes. Very, very well. How much? Well, you see, it depends. You want it with missiles or without missiles?
In the early 1990s, Miami is a city of extremes. Beautiful beaches and fancy hotels mask a boiling pot of criminal activity. Drug cartels, smugglers, and crime families fight for control of the streets and illegal trade routes linking South America to the United States. Our story begins with a man named Ludwig Weinberg, better known as Tarzan. With his imposing figure and heavy Russian accent, Tarzan is set to play a key role in one of the strangest criminal plots in history, an attempt to purchase a military submarine from Russia to smuggle drugs into America. When Tarzan first arrives in the United States from Russia, he sees it as a land of opportunity. Instead of chasing the traditional American dream, he is drawn to the criminal underworld. In Brooklyn, he becomes involved with arson, burning down businesses for profit. He partners with an illegal collection agency, breaking into houses and beating people who owe money. When his partner is mysteriously killed, Tarzan takes it as a sign to move on.
When my partner got killed, I knew it was time to leave. Someone was sending me a message.
By the mid-1990s, Tarzan has made his way to Miami, a city still healing from the cocaine wars of the previous decade. The streets teem with drug dealers, Russian mobsters, and various criminal factions battling for control. With ties to New York crime families, Tarzan takes over a struggling strip club called Porky's. Under his management, the club quickly turns into a hotspot for Miami's Russian criminal elite. He introduces controversial shows featuring porn stars and caters specifically to the Russian mafia. The club gains a reputation not only for its entertainment, but also for the dangerous clientele it attracts.
Everyone at Porky's carried guns. Tarzan always had two, a Beretta 9mm and a Colt. He never knew when trouble might start.
Porky's evolves into more than just a strip club. It becomes a meeting ground for armed mafia members and dangerous deals. Russian money flows in, and Tarzan becomes the go-to guy for gangsters needing everything from drug transport to arranging hits. One of Tarzan's closest associates is Juan Almeida, a smooth-talking smuggler with deep connections in the criminal world. Juan specializes in moving high-end cars, boats, and other luxury items across international borders. Their introduction comes through an unlikely source, Vanilla Ice, the famous rapper. Vanilla Ice asks for help repairing his '42 Tempest speedboat, leading to a meeting at a marina owned by one of Juan's friends.
Juan was a great salesman. He could sell you anything. Cars, boats, planes. He didn't care what you planned to do with them, as long as you paid.
Juan's business grows rapidly. When the Cali cartel requests half a dozen Mercedes S500s, Juan buys them in Switzerland and ships them to Colombia.
Soviet Union. Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev announced he is resigning as head of the Soviet Communist Party and recommended that the party's ruling Central Committee be disbanded, which in effect would mean the end of communist rule in the Soviet Union.
The collapse of the Soviet Union in the early 1990s creates a prime opportunity for criminals like Tarzan and Juan. With communism gone, Russia becomes a place where nearly everything is for sale, including military equipment. On a trip to Moscow to purchase motorcycles, Tarzan, Juan, and their associates decide to rent a helicopter to visit a factory 100 miles outside the city. They are surprised to learn that although renting a helicopter is unusual, there are 400 available due to a fuel shortage. The cost? Just $500 for a Mi-17 helicopter with 3 pilots. According to Tarzan, in Russia, everything was for sale. You could buy anything if you had the money. The helicopter trip sparks an idea. They learn about the Kamov Ka-32, a helicopter with 2 rotors designed to carry heavy loads, ideal for moving large drug shipments. They decide to purchase 2 of these helicopters for Colombian drug cartels. In the US, the same model would cost around $10 million. In Russia, they negotiate a price of just $650,000. They charter an Antonov On-124, a massive military aircraft larger than a 747, to transport the helicopters. Just as the plane is about to take off from a military airbase in Moscow, armed men appear and stop the plane.
These guys were Russian mafia,
recalls Juan.
They were big, scary dudes with gold chains and guns. They said we couldn't take the helicopters without paying them first.
Faced with a standoff with the Russian mafia, Juan devises a bold plan. He pretends to be working with Pablo Escobar, the infamous Colombian drug lord. Juan flies to Moscow, posing as Escobar's representative. He meets with Tarzan and the Russian mafia in a building to discuss a potential partnership for distributing cocaine in Russia. When the Russians offer to handle just 50 kilos of cocaine, Juan is unimpressed.
50 kilos? That's a joke,
he says.
It takes the same time to pack 50 kilos as it does to pack 5,000. You're wasting my time.
The bluff works, and the Russians back down. The helicopters are eventually delivered to Colombia in April 1994. With a successful helicopter deal, Tarzan and Juan's reputations soar. They adopt an extravagant lifestyle, buying yachts, Ferraris, and Mercedes, traveling by private jets, partying with celebrities, and attracting beautiful women. Tarzan opens a Russian restaurant called Babushka in North Miami Beach, which quickly becomes a favorite among South Florida's Russian community. Through the restaurant and the strip club, Tarzan builds an extensive network of Russian contacts. However, their rising success catches the eye of law enforcement, leading to the formation of a task force called Operation Odessa to investigate the Russian mob in South Florida. What Tarzan does not know is that one of his closest associates, Grisha Roizis, also known as Cannibal, has been arrested for heroin trafficking. Grisha now works as an informant for the DEA, known for biting off a police officer's nose during an arrest. Grisha faces a long prison sentence. To lessen his sentence, he agrees to help authorities gather evidence against Tarzan and his crew. Grisha secures $70,000 in funding for Tarzan's struggling restaurant and becomes the maitre d' and manager. He takes photos of the restaurant's patrons and passes them to the authorities. The DEA and FBI wire the restaurant, recording conversations between Tarzan and his criminal associates. Special Agent Alex Yasovich is assigned to go undercover and investigate Tarzan and his associates. Having grown up in the same neighborhood as Grisha and Tarzan, Alex is introduced as a trusted man from New York. During a hotel meeting, Tarzan spots what he thinks is a hidden camera, disguised as a radio. He recalls having seen a similar device in a spy store in downtown Miami. Despite the close call, the investigation continues, and Alex becomes part of Tarzan's inner circle. The investigation takes an unexpected turn when Tarzan and his crew start discussing a plan to purchase a Russian submarine. Their idea is to sell the submarine to Colombian traffickers for transporting drugs into the United States. Nelson Yester, also known as Tony or Magnum, is brought into the plan. Tony is a former Cuban Secret Service agent and a skilled pilot with 41 false identities and deep ties in international smuggling. Tony was the real deal, an associate recalls. He had contacts everywhere: South Africa, Russia, Amsterdam, Venezuela. He could move anything, anywhere. The plan is daring. Use the submarine to transport 40 tons of drugs at once, a deal worth millions of dollars. In an astonishing turn, Tarzan, Juan, and Tony are given a tour of a Russian submarine base. They are shown the submarine's weapon systems, its electronic deterrence, and its communication department. They offer the captain $200 for photos as proof of their visit. The photos reveal the three men, one with an Israeli passport, one with a Cuban passport, and one with a Venezuelan passport, inside a Russian military submarine. It was like buying a used car, Juan recalls. They showed us everything. The torpedoes, the control room, everything. When these photos reach U.S. intelligence, they cause serious concern. NATO officials worry that even an older diesel submarine like this could pose a threat if used for drug smuggling. As the investigation advances, the net tightens around Tarzan and his associates. The FBI sets up a large wiretap operation at their Miami headquarters, with Russian translators recording 15,000 hours of conversation. Meanwhile, Tony Yester becomes a target of the Colombian cartel after allegedly taking $10 million from them. Cartel members approach Juan to help locate Tony's family. Juan warns Tony, and Tony advises him to leave the country to avoid danger. Unaware of the close surveillance, Tarzan continues his operations. One morning, while dropping his daughter at school, he notices he is being followed. Soon after, he is stopped and arrested by the authorities. The story makes major headlines, with Tarzan, Juan, and Tony gracing the covers of newspapers and magazines such as the New York Times and Vanity Fair. Juan initially receives a 40-year sentence, but manages to avoid serving time. Tony Yester remains on the run, hunted by both law enforcement and the cartel. By 2000, another Russian submarine is discovered being assembled in Colombia, suggesting someone else has taken up the mantle.